Dan Ariely is an Israeli-American professor and author. He serves as a James B. Duke Professor of Psychology and Behavioral Economics at Duke University. He is the co-founder of several companies implementing insights from behavioral science. Welcome to the Bhavana Healing Podcast, where wisdom meets well-being. Today we dive into the power of healing with none other than Dan Ariely, exploring the science behind emotions, decision-making, and personal growth.
Hello. So, how was my experience of being a disciple of Dr. Kahneman? So, Danny was an incredibly creative and thoughtful guy. And it was very, very interesting to be in his presence. It was an environment of ideas, which was very, very wonderful. He encouraged me to go to business because he thought that psychology was going more into the direction of neuroscience and mathematical models, and people like us who were interested in decision making and behavioral economics became less suited in psychology. And then I would say last thing is that we had lots of discussions about, when I was thinking about writing my book, Predictably Irrational, Danny was not in favor. He thought there was not a good way to make it work. He said you would either get the general public not to enjoy the book, or you get academics to be upset with you. He didn't think there was a way to win both of those. In retrospect, he was correct. Okay, you've done extensive work on the concept of predictably irrational behavior. How can we understand this idea? How can understanding this idea help people in their everyday decision making, especially when it comes to mental health? So, the idea of predictably irrational is that it's irrational, and we should fight against it. And it's similar across people, which means we're all the same. So that means it's something because of our structure. It's something because of the way we're built. Now, there's another important element in social science, which is that it's very hard to change people, but our decisions are a function of our environment. And it's easier to change the environment. So that means that if we want to change people and change lots of people, what we need to do is get people to have a better environment. So think about this device. You have notifications turned on, we'll all be worse off. We have them turn off, we will all focus to a higher degree. We can do lots of things, right? If I came every day to you with a tray of croissants, you'll be less healthy at the end of the year. But I don't have to do that. So all of this is about to say we're similar. Our nature is not always compatible with good decisions, but we can do something. Now here, I would make a distinction between things like cars and things like information technology. And every year, cars get better. How do cars get better? People who design cars see the way we make mistakes, and they try to make the car help us make less mistakes. Seatbelt, rear view mirrors, anti-lock brakes, sensor, all kinds of things. If you think about it, we make mistakes on the road, and then the engineers are trying to figure out the way we make mistakes and how to fix it. In contrast, when it comes to information technology, things are very different. Every year information technology gets better, but it doesn't get better by helping us overcome our nature. It gets better by understanding our weak points, understanding the place where we are not functioning very well, and attacking them. The opposite from cars. If cars try to prevent us from behaving badly and get us to drive better, information technology is trying to get us to be more addicted, more impulsive, and less thoughtful. So it's very important to think about what kind of environment do we want to build. Do we want to build one that gets people and machines and cars to get better, or people and machines like information technology to perform worse. Okay. Okay. So, rational emotive behavioral therapy. Okay. So first of all, there's lots of ways to think about what is irrational. I, in general, keep the irrational to be the economic idea, that people consider all the options, think long term, don't have emotions, and so on. And the idea of this irrational thinking is to say, let's try and improve on it. Let's create mechanisms and tools to get us to be better. And do I think that it's okay to be irrational? Of course. Falling in love is irrational. Writing poetry is irrational. Irrational is not always bad, right? Irrational is sometimes very good, and we want to do more of it. So it's just that irrational is not part of the economic theory. Now, behavioral economics came in contrast to standard economics. And standard economics expect people to be rational and therefore build the world for rational people. Let's build an educational system for rational people. Let's build insurance for rational people. If people are irrational, then we need to build things in a different way. And that's, I think, is what is so important about behavioral economics. Is it's like economics, it's concerned with how to build the world, but it's taking people at their full complexity and not assuming that we are rational. Okay, in my book, The Upside of Rationality, I talk about how rationality can sometimes lead to good outcome. Of course, how does this apply to our everyday struggle with mental health? So first of all, let me say something about the good of irrationality. For example, at the workplace, you would think that we just go to work to get money and go home, and we want to work the least possible, but that's not true. We often love our work. We are connected to it. We feel motivated. We feel a sense of satisfaction, all kinds of things like that, which are irrational, but very, very good. Now, in terms of mental health and even relationship, I think a lot of things in mental health are outside of the rational framework. For example, resilience. I think that the workplace is supposed to give people a feeling of resilience. Here we are to help you out. I think that the workplace is an opportunity for people to get relationships. So I think that the workplace, for example, has a lot to contribute to our relationships, friendship, and to our mental health. But I think, sadly, we often don't think about it as such. But we need to, right? At least when I look at the US, I think the workplace is becoming more and more functional. You're here to work and so on, not recognizing the full extent of humanity and therefore not giving sufficient advantages of what we actually need. Okay. You've had an incredible journey from MIT. Some of the most surprising and unexpected discovery I made along the way. When incorporating behavioral economics, what some trends I noticed change over the years. What do you believe are the most pressing issues of psychology? Okay, most unexpected discoveries. So there was one study that we looked at online dating, and we tried to quantify what women and men want and quantify it in terms of dollar terms. And we saw that women cared a lot about men's height. For example, if I remember correctly, a man who is 5'10" is much more appealing than a man who is 5'9". I'm 5'9", by the way, and the man who is 5'9" would have to make more than $20,000 a year more to make up for that 1 inch. So it was unexpected to see how much women cared about heights of men. That's an example. But more seriously, I think that one of the most surprising results is this result from the placebo experiment, when we show that expensive placebos work better than cheap placebos. That was very important. There was another study that showed that making the invisible visible is very important in the domain of financial decision making. And the idea there was that when we have money, we can do two types of things with it. We could do visible things, buy something that we could see, that other people can see. Or we could do invisible things like saving, buying insurance, paying debt. And we realized that the invisible things are just not motivating. And if you want to get motivated for people to save, buy insurance, or pay debt, we need to make the invisible visible. So those are two of, I think, two of the most interesting ones. The placebos are influenced by prices, and that they're making the invisible visible. Some trends. So I would say that in general, many more lawyers started meddling in research. And I understand why they're doing it, but it used to be the research was just fun, and now it's very procedural. Everything takes forever. Like, for example, I wanted to do research on something that was happening in the American election. They told me it will take between 3 and 6 months to get approval. So everything has become more bureaucratic, more procedural, less free, and therefore less fun, and also we can't connect with it in real time. Also, I used to think that academia is a much better place to do research than companies, because we were faster and more nimble. I think this is not true anymore. I think that if I worked at a company, I would probably be able to produce more research than less. So I think those are some trends that worry me. And what I think are the most pressing issues, I think the biggest thing is probably to think about misinformation and misbelief. My last book was on misbelief, and I will say in general that 10 years ago, if you asked me what are the pressing problems of the world, misinformation, misbelief, polarization would not be there. But if you ask me today, I think it's probably one of the top issues. And one of the reasons it's one of the top issues is that unless we can agree on what is happening, and I don't think we can move together. So I think that has become more important. Next question. What advice do you have for students and individuals who may be wanting to live more sensible and enriched life? So I think that having a very good view of what it is that we're doing, understanding why it is that we're doing it, and trying to think very carefully about what is it that we don't like. And then, once we know what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, what we don't like, then trying to think about how to fix it. But think about all the components very carefully. What am I doing to more sensible and enriched life? I make sure that I have some time, not every day, but every week, for creativity. Writing something. I'm just started writing kids' books, so I think we all need some creative outlet. So I do that. I make sure that I have some time during the year to spend real quality time with friends. I make sure that I have some quality time to spend in nature. Those are kind of the few of the things that are important to me. And I try to make sure that what I do for the right reasons. I can't always do it, but I try to think about it this way. What resources or practice would you recommend for people interested in learning more about behavioral economics or improving their understanding of their own psychological behaviors? So I have a few books. Of course, I recommend them. I think the Heath brothers have some very good book. We have a new course on the website called Sutra about changing behavior. So you can link to that course. It's called Friction and Fuel, I think, the course, and you can find it on Sutra. I think that's a good one. And if people want to do a more comprehensive course, there's a very interesting course given by Irrational Labs. Okay, so I hope this helps. And if you want more information, you know where to reach me. All the best. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bhavana Healing Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more insightful conversations your way. See you next time.